Hi everyone, this is Geeky Vices and I am J-Belle. This is where I talk about on a almost weekly basis about what random bits of geekdom or fandom I've been into lately. So this week I'm going to do things a little bit differently. I usually will talk about something new I've been watching or been rewatching, but this is what I'm going to be calling a I finally finished it video. So what that basically means I'm going to go back to something I've already talked about and that I've finished for the first time, and it's going to be my kind of recap of my reaction to the wrap up of the series. So, forewarning, spoilers ahead. Anyways, I'm going back to talk about finishing up Eureka finally. So, as I've said in the previous video, I had previously only watched about the first 3 seasons before I stopped for a while, and then it was taken off of Netflix, and so I just didn't have a chance to ever finish up. And so recently I watched the entire series all the way through and actually got all the way to the end. So my reactions as far as the final 2 seasons are that it was definitely, I finally got to see Felicia Day's character introduced, which is cool, and I did kind of like the whole them getting ready for the going on the, what was it, the Titan trip. Like, so basically going out to space. I'm still getting used to the whole time jump that happened and the alternate timeline that they decided to happen, because they've already done that before, where there's the episode where Henry basically created a paradox by changing the event that caused Kim to die in the end of first season, and I'm still kind of sad that Kim's gone, because I still believe that's Henry's soulmate, even though I do like how things ended up for him in the end. But so they've already had alternate timelines before, but I get the impression a large part of this alternate timeline is because they wanted to not have to deal with Allison having a seriously autistic son who happened to be a genius when they needed something put together last minute, like who could figure out math equations or science equations that no one else could last minute. So I felt like that was a big part of it. It was an interesting thing about knowing that everyone's in a different timeline. I do like the parts with Carter and Allison finally getting together. I wasn't so much a fan of Joe having to basically deal with Zane, because basically the time jump happened right when Joe was getting proposed to by Zane, and I'm still a little bit more team Joe and Taggart personally. And by the way, that was one of the things that saddened me about the series, is that Taggart was only occasional cameos, so it was definitely a lot less Taggart, and I think he was such an interesting character because he is a genius. I mean, he does deserve to be in Eureka because he is a genius with his own types of things, but he's also a little bit more eccentric and rustic, and he's not as caught up in the science as I think everyone else gets to be. So I liked him. I liked this dynamic better with Joe. I think it was a healthier relationship, but there were some parts I liked about the different Zane. It definitely was a different vibe, but there were some things I didn't like as much, and I just would get tired of the Joe drama. Just her emotional confusion a lot of times would just wear me down. But I did find, so yeah, the first half of 4th season was mostly dealing with the repercussions of that, and the guy they brought that came back with them, who was one of the original founders of Eureka, and that was one of the main timeline or storylines. And then the second half has a lot of times to do with Eureka. A lot of times they'll have more than one they'll have usually 2 major arcs in a season. In the second half of the series, they the 4th season, they had to everyone was trying to get onto Titan, because that was for a lot of people their dreams. And I liked Felicia Day's character. It was a Felicia Day pretty much playing a Felicia Day character. I mean, nothing new there. I mean, it's her being quirky and adorable and geeky, and it worked. And it was cool to be oh, Will Wheaton and Felicia would be on screen together. I love Will Wheaton. I love Felicia Day. And I actually have a poster from the guild of that fantasy cover that they did. So I have that as a poster, which I finally put up in my bedroom recently. So that's a little bit creepy, but it amuses me at the same time, just because like it's so funny, and like the fact that I know in real life those two would never be interested in her, because Will is so devoted to his wife, and it's just like they had too much of a sibling dynamic. But it amuses me. But yeah, it was cool seeing two, like the king and queen of geekdom, and they who used to be the king and queen of Geek and Sundry, which I'm still sad about. But it was cool seeing them being together. Yeah, I liked Felicia's character. The Titan arc was interesting. I will say I definitely had a feeling that as far as when the ship got hijacked in the series, like I definitely had a feeling it had to do with Marlowe's coming back and stuff, because like they never resolved it. So that was like pretty clear to me. It's like, okay, clearly Beverly's involved. And honestly, the senator, who was like way too much pushing for it to happen, like she was also clearly involved. Like the fact that she was one that like, we're gonna create this project, we're gonna do this, you have this strict timeline. No, it's gotta happen now. It's like the fact that she's like way too involved. It's like, yeah, she's clearly in on it. So yeah, and then the beginning of this season, oh yeah, in the finale of 4th season, they have a weird, like, different cartoon styles episode, which was kind of trippy and weird. Some parts of it were better done than others, and I have to admit, it's kind of like just a throwaway episode. It's totally anachronistic, but hey, it was nice having Zoe back, because she so rarely was in the series at that point. And I think the only episode she was in 5th season, I think, was the finale, which I am glad about. I'm glad that they let her come back. And as I said, Tiger was in the final episode, and they had Einstein return. Or no, not Einstein. LoJack, the dog with the genius IQ that Tiger is always trying to capture and evade him. But yeah, 5th season, it was them trying to get back the people who were kidnapped from Titan. And I will say I don't like what happened. This season felt a little bit more contrived, and definitely you could feel the series running out of steam. So I mean, I'm glad it did kind of end with 5 seasons, even though I was so over the whole Allison Joe tension thing. Like the fact that like it was implied that Carter and Joe were going to eventually develop feelings for each other, because the simulation showed. It's like, just because the simulation happened, it doesn't mean that's the way it was. And emotionally, yes, I know you went through that, but like you also didn't experience that for that long. So it's like, it wasn't like you were there for years worth in the hologram. It's like, no, you're only there for a little bit. It's like, it's not that hard to go back. So yeah, I was it was definitely a lot more weird love triangle stuff going on. And I didn't I felt like they were just trying to manufacture drama, because I think the fact that like they finally had the end game of Carter and Allison being together, they were just kind of manufacture drama, and that's part why she'd be like, oh, she'd always be mad at him, and then the wedding being last minute, it just, yeah. And then Grace going away for a while. I mean, I understand that it was tough, like having dealt with a version of Henry that was trying to kill her, and she ended up killing him, but it wasn't the real Henry. I mean, she's already had to come to terms with the fact that she's met an alternate Henry, so I feel like she, of anyone, should be able to emotionally rebound better than anyone else, like knowing that, like, hey, this is a different timeline. And yeah, and then I remember that there's the part about how they find out that there was someone who was a spy all along besides Beverly Marlowe, and we find out it was Grace, and that Henry was the one that brought her in, but it's the alternate timeline Henry, not the Henry we know. And I'm just like, I had a feeling that was going to be the case, and it's just like, he shouldn't feel guilty about it, but it's like, as I said, it feels like it's just trying to force a Henry storyline, and also a reason to bring Beverly back for the very last, like, for redemption, and also just be part of the last episode. But I do like how the series kind of wraps itself up, because I like finales where it kind of wraps up the storylines, but you feel like the story's still going on. Like, I personally would have hated if the town, like, they were making it be like, oh, the DOD is no longer funding Eureka. And it's like, that makes sense, because it has been pretty problematic this season. And so they cut so they Sorry, lost my tangle of thoughts. Literal tangle. By the way, yeah. So as I said, like the DoD like stops funding, which I think honestly was about time, and the town like everything's getting sold, and the moving days speeding up, and some people find new jobs, and then at the very end they have it that way. It turns out a private buyer has purchased the town, which I'm surprised the DoD would have allowed, because like I feel like that's a big security risk, like having someone like the town of Eureka, like all those type of resources being privately owned. Even though it's kind of like more than ideal, it's like it can go back to being science. It can go back to like not being about weapons. It can go back to being about like furthering humanity and be a little more idealistic. Again, not have like these horrible restrictions or weird priority in funding where it's like it might not be the best for humanity. But anyways, when they said there was a private buyer, I knew it had to be one of two people. It either had to be the woman from second season who had the ridiculously long lifespan, which it totally could have been her. She would have had the resources. She would have had the interest in investing in the town. Like has a long history of being part of the town. Or the more likely one who turned out to be was the guy who came back from the past, and like he ended up investing in Johnson & Johnson, and so he's ridiculously rich, and he's always had issues with the fact that Eureka is no longer following its idealistic scientific mission, like how it is. So hand in hand with the military. So that was a happy thing, like where it was like everything was about to end, but nope, Eureka continues, but it's freed from the reins of being under the DoD. Yeah, it no longer has to be a military, any connection to the military anymore, which is good. And yeah, Felicia Day's character, like Holly and Fargo, get to go off and do new adventures. Henry's put in charge of global dynamics, and like Henry's perfect for that. I've always loved Henry. He's always been one of my favorite characters, and like he is the best person for global dynamics because he's so ridiculously smart, but he also has like that strong moral compass, and he is about like scientific development, like the idealistic part of it. So he's gonna be pushing for it rather than like things are gonna better humanity, rather than like caring about things being fiscally valid or being military. So like he's gonna be he's gonna be pushing for the more romanticized science. So yeah, gay for Henry. I will say I didn't like what happened with Felicia Day. I know it was like a cool thing. Like honestly, I had heard before I even watched the later seasons that her character was a hologram, and I thought it was going to be like, okay, she's on a spaceship and she's a hologram or something, kind of like the Doctor in Star Trek Voyager. But no, it was kind of like the ghost of her, and it's just it could have been cool, but I just kind of felt like it fell flat. Like, I love Felicia Day, but it's just like, it just didn't feel authentic, and it just felt so strained, and I'm glad that she stopped becoming a hologram, but I just didn't like, her character didn't feel as three-dimensional. She felt more so like the stereotypical Felicia Day character, and yeah. She was a much better character in the 4th season before all of that happened, yeah. So, yeah, those are my overall thoughts. I'm glad, overall, happy Carter and Allison ended together. I'm happy Henry's in charge of global dynamics. I'm glad he has a new love of his life, even though for me it'll always be Kim. I'm glad Jo's finally made up her mind about something, as far as like a relationship, and she and Zane are going to be together, even though I think she was better off with the other Zane, personally. But yeah, and then Fargo and Holly are pretty much like, yep, we're gonna go off into the world, so we're not gonna be part of Eureka anymore, and I think that's gonna be for the better, because I will admit, like, early seasons, I did not like Fargo at all. Like, I'm glad the changes they made with him with 4th season onward, where he's no longer the guy that always pushes the button, and that he's not, especially like once he was no longer like Nathan Stark's lapdog. I will still say I'm still sad there's no Nathan Stark was written out so long ago, same as I was sad about Kim, but you know what? The story evolves. I wish there had been more Zoe, but I understand why they minimized her a little bit, and I wish they hadn't. I feel like some of the melodrama with the whole like hologram world trying to come after them, I'm just like, it was just it just felt a little bit heavy-handed. I guess it's just, as I said, it was the weakest season. I mean, it was 5 seasons long. The series was great, but yeah, it definitely was losing steam, and I think it ended when it should have. So yeah, those are my overall thoughts. I rambled on long enough, but yeah, I finally finished it. So yay! So yeah, anyways, I hope everyone continues their own geeky vices, and that's it for this week. Until next time, see you guys.